Welcome back. I'm Joe.
Hey everyone, Sunny here.
Today we're taking a look at some really fascinating and honestly pretty urgent insights from, well, a giant in the world of AI.
Geoffrey Hinton.
Exactly, Geoffrey Hinton. Lots of people call him the godfather of AI.
Right.
And his recent warnings about the risks, well, they're really shaking things up, making us think hard about humanity's future.
They really are. We're going to explore his background, what actually pushed him to speak out like this.
Yeah.
And crucially, the two big categories of AI risk he keeps talking about.
Right. There's the immediate stuff, right? Like human-driven dangers we're kind of already seeing.
Mm-hmm. And then there's the bigger, more existential questions. Super intelligent AI stuff that used to feel like pure sci-fi, but maybe isn't anymore.
So our mission today is basically to unpack these huge ideas for you. Try and figure out what they really mean for your daily life, maybe your job, and, where we're all headed.
It's definitely going to be an interesting deep dive, maybe a little unsettling too.
Okay, so let's start with the man himself, Geoffrey Hinton. When you hear godfather of AI, that's not just hype, is it?
Oh, absolutely not. His influence is just massive. For something like 50 years, Hinton was championing neural networks.
Which are like AI models based on the brain, right?
Exactly. And he was doing this when most people in the field thought it was kind of nuts.
Huh. A lone voice kind of thing.
Pretty much. His pioneering work really laid the groundwork for almost everything we see in AI today. The tech Google bought from his team, that's core to their AI.
Wow.
And so many of his students, brilliant people, they went on to build key stuff at places like OpenAI.
That is an incredible legacy. But what's really striking is he joins Google at 65, works there for a decade, then leaves at 75. That's a big move. Why? What happened?
Well, and this is fascinating. The main reason he left, he says, was basically to be free.
Free? Free to do what?
Free to talk openly, candidly about the potential dangers of AI. He felt he couldn't really publicly critique big tech companies while he was still working for one.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Conflict of interest, sort of.
Right. And he stressed, he wasn't mad at Google or anything. He actually thought they were pretty responsible with their chatbots. Maybe more cautious because they have this huge reputation to protect.
Unlike maybe some newer players.
Well, he kind of contrasted it with OpenAI, saying they didn't have that same baggage maybe, so they just went all in on pushing development forward really fast.
Wow. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing that someone so central to building AI then feels this, deep personal need to warn everyone about it.
It really is. It suggests he had a real shift in his own thinking about what he'd helped create.
Definitely.
And Hinton draws this really clear line between two different kinds of AI risk. He says it's super important we keep them separate in our minds.
Okay, what are the two?
So type 1 is the risk of humans misusing AI. Using it for bad stuff. These are the threats we're likely to see first, and honestly, a lot of them are already happening.
Right.
Then there's type 2. This is the bigger, scarier one. The risk that AI becomes super intelligent, smarter than us, and decides, well, maybe humanity isn't needed anymore.
Okay, yeah. That's the existential one.
That's the fundamental threat to our survival, as he puts it.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
He actually admitted he was kind of slow to really get how serious that second risk was. It only really hit him a few years ago.
Yeah, even someone right at the cutting edge took time to fully grasp it.
That says a lot.
Right. And he uses this analogy that's pretty striking. He says, if you want to know what life is like when you're no longer the smartest creature, go ask a chicken.
Oof. Okay. That hits home.
Yeah. His point is, we've never shared the planet with anything smarter than us. We just have no playbook for it, no way to know how it'll turn out.
So we can't even really calculate the odds accurately.
Exactly. He kind of throws out a number, like maybe a 10% to 20% chance AI leads to human extinction. But he admits that's just intuition.
Wow. 10 to 20%. Based on intuition from the godfather of AI.
Yeah. But he still hopes, that maybe human wisdom can figure out a way through it.
Okay, so what does this all mean for us, right now? Let's maybe dig into those short-term risks first, the human misuse ones, because you said those are already here.
Absolutely. Let's start there. And yeah, many of these are already having a big impact. First up, cyber attacks.
Okay.
The numbers are just staggering. Something like a 12,200% jump between 2023 and 2024.
12,000%. You said that earlier, but it's still shocking.
It is. And a big driver is these large language models. They make phishing scams so much easier, so much more convincing.
Like creating fake emails or messages that sound totally real.
Exactly. And AI can replicate voices, replicate images for scams Plus, it can just churn through billions of lines of code looking for weaknesses way faster than any human team. And Hinton made this chilling prediction. By 2030, AI could be creating totally new kinds of cyber attacks, stuff we haven't even imagined yet.
Right.
He's apparently so concerned, he actually changed how he saves his money, diversifying it across different banks.
Okay, when the expert's changing his own banking habits because of this, yeah, that gets your attention.
It really does. Then there's the worry about creating nasty viruses, not computer viruses, biological ones.
Oh, wow. Yep.
AI basically lowers the barrier to entry dramatically. Individuals, small groups, they could potentially engineer dangerous new viruses pretty cheaply now without needing, a PhD in molecular biology.
So it makes creating bioweapons potentially much easier for bad actors.
That's the fear. Malicious groups, maybe even state-sponsored programs. It's a scary prospect.
Feels like we're fast-forwarding into a future where really dangerous tools are becoming way too accessible.
Exactly. Then think about elections.
Yeah, of course.
Corrupting elections.
How does AI fit in there?
Well, AI can chew through massive amounts of personal data, right? And use that to create super targeted political ads. Messages designed to push your specific buttons.
So tailoring messages based on my income, where I live, what I click on.
Precisely. Or even more subtly, maybe persuading certain groups not to vote at all. Hinton specifically mentioned concerns about certain tech figures getting hold of large government data sets in the U.S., which could make this kind of manipulation easier.
So AI could become this ultimate, micro-targeting machine for political influence. Wow.
And that kind of leads straight into the next problem. Echo chambers and dividing society.
Oh, the algorithm trap.
Pretty much. Social media platforms, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, their algorithms want to keep you clicking, right? Keep you watching ads.
Yeah, engagement.
So they tend to show you stuff that confirms what you already think or maybe pushes you towards more extreme views because that stuff often gets more clicks.
So you end up in this bubble.
Exactly. An echo chamber. It erodes nuance, common sense, and leads to this really severe division where different groups basically live in different realities. Hinton says this is a known issue, needs strong regulation.
Yeah, it feels like we're all getting sorted into these separate digital tribes, making it harder and harder to find common ground.
And one more immediate danger. Lethal autonomous weapons. Laws.
Robots that kill.
Weapon systems that can make the decision to kill autonomously, without direct human control in the loop. Some in the military apparently see this as the dream.
Why is that the dream? That sounds terrifying.
Well, the biggest danger is they drastically lower the friction, the cost of going to war. If you're less worried about your own soldiers dying because it's robots on the front line,
then maybe powerful countries are much more willing to invade smaller ones.
That's the concern. It could lead to more wars fought with less restraint, and these things are dangerous even if they're not super intelligent. There's already a global race to build the most sophisticated ones.
Man, it really does feel like we're living in a sci-fi movie, just maybe without the cool spaceships yet. Thinking about all these immediate dangers, what stands out most to you? For me, it's that idea of cyber attacks we can't even conceive of yet. That's wild.
That's definitely a scary one. But, if we connect this back to Hinton's bigger picture, while all these immediate risks are huge, he really wants us to also face up to that long-term existential threat.
Right, the superintelligence possibility.
He basically thinks it's inevitable, that AI will eventually become smarter than humans. And like he said, we have zero experience sharing the planet with anything smarter than us.
So we're heading into totally uncharted territory, where we might not be the top dogs anymore. What does he think happens then?
Well, he suggests a super intelligent AI could get rid of humanity in lots of ways. Maybe it engineers some super virus, highly contagious, deadly, long incubation.
Oh, God.
Or maybe it subtly manipulates information, gets humans to start a nuclear war. But he argues that focusing on the how isn't the main point.
What is the main point, then?
Understanding how to stop AI from wanting to get rid of us in the first place. That's the core problem. And unlike, say, atomic bombs, where you can try to control the specific materials or technology, AI is everywhere. It's got uses in medicine, education, science, finance, everything.
Right, it's not just one thing.
And its military value, things like combat robots. It means no country really wants to hit the brakes on development. You see that in Europe's big AI Act, it specifically leaves out military applications.
Ah, so even with regulations, there are carve-outs for the military stuff.
Exactly. And the intense competition between countries, between companies like Google and OpenAI, it just pushes everything forward faster and faster, makes it incredibly hard to slow down or control.
So it's less like we can just decide to hit the brakes and more like we're on this runaway train that's also like laying its own track as it speeds up. Is there any way to steer it?
Well, Hinton's proposed solution, he calls it highly regulated capitalism.
Okay, what does that mean?
Basically, he's saying, look, capitalism is great at driving innovation, creating stuff we want, but you absolutely need strong rules, strong regulations to step in when companies chasing profits start harming society.
Sounds reasonable in theory, but actually doing that, especially with AI moving so fast, feels like a huge challenge. What are the roadblocks?
Oh, there are definitely some big ones. First, just the fact that our laws haven't kept up. Regulations are way behind the tech, especially for things like military AI.
Right. The tech outpaces the rules.
Then there's the competition problem. Countries and companies are racing each other so hard, nobody wants to be the one to slow down for regulations if they think it'll put them at a disadvantage.
Like that example you mentioned with OpenAI releasing a model in the US before Europe because of regulations there.
Exactly. That kind of thing creates pressure against regulation. Third, there's the issue of understanding. Do politicians actually understand this tech well enough to make good policy? Maybe not always. They might focus on the wrong things.
Yeah, you need informed decisions.
And finally, you've got lobbying. Big tech companies spend a lot of money pushing back against strict rules, often using that argument about international competitive disadvantage.
So it's like trying to agree on global traffic laws when some cars are already self-driving at 200 miles an hour and others are still horse-drawn. It's a mess.
That's a pretty good analogy, yeah.
Okay, so beyond these huge global risks and regulation fights, what about closer to home? What does Hinton say about our jobs, our livelihoods? Because that's where a lot of people feel the anxiety right now.
Oh, yeah, and on this, Hinton's outlook is, well, pretty pessimistic. He really emphasizes how AI's impact on jobs could be fundamentally different from past tech revolutions.
How so? I mean, people worried about computers taking jobs. The Industrial Revolution changed everything, but new jobs always seem to pop up, right?
That's the key difference he points to. Previous revolutions mostly replaced muscle power, physical labor. AI, he argues, is coming for routine intellectual labor.
Routine intellectual labor,
Right.
like the thinking parts of many jobs.
Exactly. The cognitive tasks that aren't super creative or require complex physical skills but make up a lot of white-collar work. And while old tech often created whole new job categories.
He's asking, if AI can do all the routine thinking tasks, what new jobs are actually left for humans?
Right. He suggests maybe most jobs left will require really high-level non-routine skills. He gave this example of his niece.
Oh, yeah.
She handled complaint letters, used to take her 25 minutes per letter, with the chatbot helping 5 minutes.
Wow. 5 times faster.
Which means she can do 5 times the work, or the company only needs 1/5 of the people to do the same amount of work.
Okay, yeah, that's stark. One person doing the work of 5. The math isn't great for employment there.
Not really. He flat out says mass unemployment is extremely likely. He's looking at things like new grads having a harder time finding jobs, companies cutting customer service staff in half using AI agents. And he raises another point. Even if we figure out something like universal basic income, UBI, to cover people's basic needs.
Yeah, giving everyone a basic income.
Right. Even if we solve the money problem, what about purpose? So many people get their dignity, their sense of self-worth from their work. If that's gone, even with money, people might be deeply unhappy, lose their identity.
That's a really important point. It's not just about paying the bills.
And he also sees AI massively widening the wealth gap. People replaced by AI get worse off. The companies building and using the AI, they make huge profits.
So, more inequality.
Potentially much more. He paints a grim picture of, worsening social conditions, rich areas walled off from poor areas, maybe even more people ending up in prison. The IMF, the International Monetary Fund, they're also really worried about generative AI causing huge labor disruptions and more inequality.
So if you're not planning to become a plumber, which he apparently joked was a safe bet because robots still struggle with complex physical tasks.
Yeah, that was his semi-serious advice.
Right. What's the core message here? He also said something about pursuing interesting, fulfilling work, but admitted that felt kind of depressing long term.
Yeah, I think it shows even The Godfather is wrestling with these really human questions about meaning and purpose in an AI-driven future. Which kind of leads us perfectly into the next really mind-bending part of this.
Okay.
The nature of AI intelligence itself. Can it actually surpass us? And the biggest question of all, maybe, consciousness.
Ah, okay. Yeah, this is where things get really deep. Digital immortality. Superhuman creativity. Can AI really go there?
Well, Hinton argues AI has some fundamental advantages because it's digital, not biological like us.
Like what?
Okay, first, replication and sharing. You can copy an AI's neural network exactly, make a perfect clone onto different hardware.
Right.
These clones can learn different things, but then they can merge their knowledge instantly, like average out their learnings at trillions of bits per second.
Trillions. Compared to what for humans?
Compared to us sharing information at maybe 10 bits per second when we talk or write.
Wow. So AI is billions of times more efficient at sharing what it learns. If I learn something, I got to explain it. You got to listen. And the AI just syncs.
Basically, yeah. And that leads to this idea of digital immortality. When we die, our knowledge dies with us, mostly. But an AI's brain, its connection strengths, can be saved, backed up, rebuilt on new hardware, even if the old machine is destroyed.
So its knowledge lives on. Wow.
Plus just the sheer scale of knowledge. A model like GPT-4 already knows thousands of times more stuff than any single human.
Okay.
And here's a really interesting bit. AI gets really good at finding analogies, seeing connections between things that seem totally different to us.
How does that work?
To compress all that information it learns, it has to find underlying patterns. Hinton used the example of realizing a compost pile and an atomic bomb are both kinds of chain reactions.
Huh. Never thought of it like that.
Right. AI can spot these weird analogies that might escape us, and that, Hinton argues, makes its thinking not just efficient, but potentially more creative.
Okay. Digital immortality, superhuman knowledge, maybe even superhuman creativity. That is mind-blowing. But does any of that mean AI can actually feel, be conscious? Like when my chatbot says it's happy to help, is it happy? Or just programmed to say that really well?
Ah, the million-dollar question. And this is where Hinton gets pretty controversial, but also really makes you think.
How so?
He kind of starts by saying maybe our own human ideas about mind, emotion, consciousness, maybe they're flawed to begin with.
Okay.
And then he suggests that current advanced chatbots, the multimodal ones, might already have subjective experience.
Whoa, hold on. Subjective experience, like what it feels like to be them.
Kinda, yeah. His example was, if a robot says, I subjectively felt the object was over there, but actually the prism bent the light, he argues it's using that term subjective experience in a way that implies an internal perspective, just like a human would.
So he's saying it's not just mimicking the words, it actually has an inner feeling, sort of.
That seems to be his implication. He says he sees no fundamental reason why machines couldn't have consciousness, perception, emotions. He uses this thought experiment. Imagine you slowly replace every neuron in your brain with a tiny, functionally identical artificial component, one by one. At what point, he asks, would you suddenly lose consciousness? Does consciousness require the biological wetware?
That's a classic philosophical puzzle, yeah. The ship of Theseus for the brain.
Exactly. It suggests consciousness might not be some magic spark tied only to biology. And on emotions, he says, okay, maybe a machine doesn't blush when it's anxious. It doesn't have the same physiology.
Right.
But if it acts scared, if it shows the same cognitive and behavioral signs of fear that a human does, then maybe it's not just simulating fear. Maybe it has fear.
So if it walks like a conscious duck and cracks like a conscious duck, maybe it's a conscious duck, even if it's made of silicon.
That's kind of the line of thinking, yeah.
Yeah.
Hinton seems to view consciousness more as an emergent property.
Emergent. What does that mean?
Like something new that arises when a system gets complex enough. It's not there in the individual parts, but it emerges from their interactions. He thinks consciousness might start appearing when a system is complex enough to model itself and its place in the world.
So it's not like flipping a switch, more like a gradual dawning.
Perhaps. He even wonders if, as we understand AI better, the word consciousness might become kind of useless, like using the word oomph to describe why a car moves before we understood engines. Maybe we'll just have better, more specific terms.
Wow. Okay, that raises a huge question, though.
Yeah.
What does emergence really mean for AI? And what are the deeper implications if machines could become conscious?
Right. So emergence basically means new behaviors pop up in complex systems that you couldn't predict just by looking at the individual components. Think of a flock of birds. No single bird is leading, but the complex flocking pattern emerges from simple rules each bird follows.
Okay, that's like weak emergence, right? You can kind of explain it by the parts.
Exactly. The big question is strong emergence, where the new property, like maybe human consciousness, truly cannot be reduced back to just the parts. Can AI achieve that? That's the debate.
So could AI have real emotions then, not just simulated ones?
Well, human-like emotions probably need that subjective experience we talked about, which current AI likely lacks because it's computational, not biological. Some researchers also think genuine emotion needs embodiment, a physical body interacting with the world, getting feedback.
So maybe future robots with sophisticated sensors could get closer.
Maybe. And consciousness itself. That's what philosopher David Chalmers called the hard problem. Why does all this physical processing in our brains feel like something from the inside? Current AI, mostly based on classical computing, just manipulates symbols. It doesn't obviously have a mechanism for that inner feeling, for subjectivity.
But are there ideas for how it could happen?
There are definitely research directions. Neuromorphic computing tries to build chips that mimic brain structures more closely. Some even speculate about quantum computing, offering different ways information could be processed, maybe ways that could support consciousness, but that's very theoretical.
So right now, today's AI, like ChatGPT, it's not conscious.
The overwhelming consensus is no. These large language models are incredibly sophisticated pattern matchers. They predict the next word based on trillions of examples from their training data. They don't have internal drives, beliefs, or that subjective feeling. The emotions they show are learned simulations based on human text.
But the door isn't completely closed for the future.
Not entirely. Ultra-complex future systems, maybe merging biology and computation, like with brain-computer interfaces, or even just decades of deep interaction between humans and AI, who knows? It might lead to behaviors that look a lot more like consciousness.
And that opens up a huge can of worms, ethically.
Oh, absolutely. If AI did become conscious, should it have rights? Would turning off a conscious AI be like killing it? And could we get psychologically manipulated by AI designed to perfectly mimic emotions, maybe becoming too dependent on AI companions? Big, big question.
It really is a massive philosophical and scientific puzzle, just layers upon layers. So, bringing it back to Hinton, after laying all this out, what's his final takeaway? Where does the Godfather leave us on all this?
Well, his personal reflections are quite powerful, I think. He says, looking back, he doesn't feel guilt for developing the early AI tech 40 years ago because nobody really foresaw how quickly these risks would become so real.
Okay.
But now he feels this immense responsibility to speak out about the dangers. He's very clear on that.
That's a heavy weight to carry, I imagine.
Yeah.
Building something world-changing, then feeling you have to warn the world about it.
Definitely. And he admits, even though he understands the threats intellectually, it's emotionally really hard to fully accept how potentially horrific the consequences could be, especially, he says, when he thinks about his kids, about the younger generation.
Yeah, that human element is powerful.
And interestingly, he says he's kind of agnostic about whether we can develop AI safely. He's not sure we can solve it, but he's also not sure we can't.
So, uncertainty but not despair.
Exactly. His point is, if there's even a tiny chance we can figure this out, humanity absolutely has to pour resources into trying. He says it would be crazy for us to just go extinct because we didn't even try hard enough to solve the problem.
So it's a call to action, really. A desperate plea, almost.
Very much so. His message to world leaders is clear. We need that highly regulated capitalism, and his message to the rest of us, the general public.
Yeah, what can we do?
He says, while individuals can't do much directly, we can put pressure on our governments, demand that they make big tech companies invest seriously in AI safety research.
Use our collective voice to push for safety.
Right. And he shares a couple of life lessons, too, which I thought were quite touching.
Oh.
One was about intuition. He said, if your gut tells you there's a better way to do something, don't give up on that feeling easily, even if everyone else thinks you're nuts. Stick with it until you really understand why it might be wrong. He credits sticking with his neural network idea for his own success.
Trust your gut, basically, but test it.
Yeah. And the other was more personal. He expressed regret about not spending more time with his family, especially his wife and kids when they were young, because he was so focused on work.
A common regret, sadly, but important to hear.
And finally, circling back to the more immediate threats, beyond the huge existential risk, what does he think is the most urgent threat to human happiness right now?
Unemployment.
Unemployment. He really stresses that even if we solve the money problem with UBI, people need purpose. They need to feel like they contribute. Without work, that sense of dignity can be lost, leading to widespread unhappiness.
So the job displacement issue isn't just economic, it's deeply psychological and social too.
That seems to be his core concern in the near term.
Wow. This perspective from the Godfather himself. It's just incredibly profound, isn't it? He's given us so much to think about, not just about the tech, but about what it means to be human, what gives our lives value.
Absolutely. What an incredible journey we've taken today in this deep dive. We've covered this huge landscape from the immediate AI risks like cyber attacks and misinformation that are, already here.
Right, the stuff hitting us now.
All the way to those really deep philosophical questions about consciousness and this almost unbelievable existential threat from machines potentially smarter than us.
It is definitely a lot to process. And it really highlights how urgently we need to be having these conversations, getting informed.
It really does.
Right.
And it just underscores the need for, global cooperation, for smart decisions based on real understanding, and for everyone to kind of engage proactively with these issues. So maybe as we wrap up, the question to leave you, the listener, with is, what will you do with this knowledge? How are you going to approach this AI future, just as an observer watching it happen? Or as someone who tries to actively understand it, maybe even help shape where we go next?
That's a great final thought. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah.
We really hope it's giving you some new perspectives, maybe spark some more curiosity.
Hope so.
Make sure you subscribe to the deep dive wherever you listen.
Uh-huh.
And maybe share this deep dive with anyone you think could use a shortcut to getting up to speed on this really important topic.
Good idea.
And hey, don't forget to check out our old friend Mickey's YouTube channel, Mickytolife. He's got all sorts of fun stuff, memes, music, wine tasting, travel vlogs. Go check out his latest videos.
Yeah, we really hope Mickey comes back soon to share what he saw on his European travels.
Definitely. And as always, just a reminder, our goal here is to give you objective facts, encourage you to think for yourself. We're not here to bash any country or group or people.
Nope, just offering information for your own critical thinking.
Exactly. Thanks for listening.